The city was cloaked in a bitter winter chill, the kind that seemed to seep into every bone, every joint, and every corner of the soul. Streetlights flickered faintly against the falling snow, their glow reflecting off icy puddles scattered across the cracked pavement. The buses came and went, their engines coughing clouds of exhaust into the frosty air, but Michael stood quietly at the bus stop, lost in thought. He was a man of simple routines: wake up early, work long hours at the local factory, come home to a modest apartment, and repeat it all the next day. Life had never been easy for him, and lately, the weight of bills, overdue rent, and family obligations felt heavier than ever. The harsh winter only added to his misery. Each gust of wind was a reminder that he could not afford much, least of all warmth or comfort. As he waited, Michael noticed a figure across the street. She was standing alone under the dim glow of a street lamp, her posture stiff, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Snowflakes clung to her dark hair and the edges of her coat, which, although clearly expensive, did little to shield her from the piercing cold. Her teeth chattered audibly, and every exhale came out as a cloud of mist. Michael felt a twinge of concern. Most people would have ignored her, lost in their own worries, but something about her vulnerability struck a chord in him. He knew what it felt like to be exposed, powerless, and on the verge of despair. Without overthinking it, he pulled off his own worn jacket, a gift from his late father, patched in several places but still warm, and walked over to her. "Here," he said gently, holding it out. "You'll freeze otherwise." The woman looked up at him, startled. Her eyes were a deep, intelligent brown, wide with surprise, and there was a fleeting hesitation in her expression. She didn't speak at first, just let him drape the jacket over her shoulders. Michael noticed the way her body sagged slightly as warmth reached her, the tension easing just a little. "Thank you," she murmured finally, her voice soft but tinged with fatigue. Michael smiled, a little awkwardly, because he wasn't used to talking to strangers. "It's nothing," he said. "Just take care of yourself." He watched her for a moment, noticing the faint tremor in her hands and the way her eyes seemed almost haunted. It struck him that, whatever her story, it must be difficult. In a city this size, everyone seemed to be rushing past one another, too absorbed in their own troubles to notice anyone else. But tonight, he could make a difference, even if only in this small, fleeting way. A few buses roared past, and Michael knew his own bus would arrive soon. He didn't linger, he had to get home, had to continue his monotonous routine. "Good night," he said, giving her a small wave. "Stay warm." The woman nodded again, a faint smile brushing her lips, and Michael walked back to the stop just in time to see his bus approaching. As he climbed aboard and found a seat near the back, he glanced out the window. She was still there, wrapped in his jacket, her figure illuminated briefly by the passing streetlights before disappearing into the night. Michael leaned back in his seat, letting out a sigh. He thought about how strange it was, how one small gesture could make such a difference to someone else. He didn't know her name, didn't know anything about her life. And yet, he felt a quiet satisfaction, a warmth that had nothing to do with the jacket or the bus. It was something deeper, an understanding that kindness mattered, even when no one was watching. Meanwhile, across town, the woman, Isabella Green, stood still, feeling the warmth of the jacket wrap around her. She was a woman used to power, used to controlling every aspect of her life, yet in that moment, she had been helpless, cold, and very much human. She had never imagined that someone like Michael, someone ordinary, someone unnoticed in the grand tapestry of the city, would step forward to help her without question. Her mind replayed the moment over and over as she finally made her way home, the jacket a small but powerful symbol of unexpected kindness. In a world where everyone seemed transactional, where favors were given only for returns, this simple act of generosity struck her profoundly. It reminded her of what she had almost forgotten, the value of empathy, the beauty of selflessness. For Michael, the night ended quietly. He returned to his small apartment, the radiator struggling to heat the space, and sat down at his kitchen table. Bills lay scattered in front of him, but for a few moments, he allowed himself to forget them. He thought about the woman at the bus stop, about the look in her eyes when she had accepted his jacket. That brief connection, fleeting as it had been, brought a strange, gentle light into his otherwise routine life. Sleep came fitfully, his dreams filled with the cold wind and snow, but also the warmth of human connection. He did not know it yet, but the encounter at the bus stop was the beginning of something extraordinary. Something that would ripple through both of their lives in ways neither could have anticipated, because sometimes, life's most profound moments come not from grand gestures or wealth, but from a single act of kindness offered without expectation, in the quiet anonymity of a winter night. And for Michael and Isabella, the night at the bus stop was about to become the story that changed everything. The following morning, Michael woke to the shrill sound of his alarm, groggy and still half dreaming. The memory of the previous night's bus stop encounter lingered faintly in his mind, but he pushed it aside. Life didn't wait for dreams or reflections. He had work, bills, and responsibilities that demanded his full attention. He trudged to the bus stop, the cold biting at his face, and climbed aboard the same bus he took every day. The streets were already crowded with early commuters, all of them absorbed in their own worlds, headphones in ears, eyes glued to screens, hands clutching coffee cups like lifelines. Michael slumped into his usual seat near the back, mind wandering to the mundane routine of the day ahead. Meanwhile, across town, Isabella Green couldn't shake the memory of Michael's jacket. She had tried to focus on her work, meetings, and deadlines, but her mind kept returning to the image of him, ordinary yet extraordinary in his generosity. She had spent years building her empire, mastering deals and negotiations, yet she had rarely encountered someone so selflessly kind. It unnerved her in a way that made her heart feel both lighter and heavier at the same time. For Isabella, that one act of warmth in the freezing night had made her feel seen, not as a CEO, not as a figure of authority, but as a human being, vulnerable and fragile. She realized that people like Michael, people who acted with compassion without expectation, were rarer than diamonds in her world. 2 weeks later, Michael's life was still its usual rhythm of work and routine. Bills piled up, and the city felt as unforgiving as ever. That's when a sleek envelope arrived at his modest apartment. The handwriting was elegant, almost formal, and the paper had a subtle weight to it. Michael raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Inside was a note, simple yet impossible to ignore. You may not know me, but your kindness the other night did not go unnoticed. I would like to meet you and discuss an opportunity that could change your life, just as you changed mine that night. There was also an invitation to a gala, a place Michael had never dreamed of attending. He stared at the envelope, heart pounding. It had to be a mistake. Who would invite someone like him, a factory worker, to such a high-profile event? But the words burned in his mind, the acknowledgement that his small act of kindness mattered. That evening, Michael hesitated at the entrance of the grand hall, taking in the glittering chandeliers, the elegantly dressed crowd, and the hum of conversation that seemed so distant from his world. His suit felt heavy and unfamiliar, his shoes polished but awkward on the marble floors. And then he saw her, Isabella, radiant in a deep emerald gown, moving with grace and confidence, yet her eyes lit up when they met his. She approached him, smiling warmly. "Michael," she said, her voice carrying the same calm authority and gentle kindness he had felt at the bus stop. "I'm so glad you came." Michael's throat tightened. I didn't expect." "Well, I'm not really. You don't have to explain anything," Isabella interrupted softly. "I just wanted to meet the person who reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten, that true kindness exists without motive or reward." They talked for hours, and Michael discovered that Isabella's life, though glamorous and powerful, was often lonely. Her position meant she was surrounded by people who were interested in what she could give, rather than who she truly was. Michael, on the other hand, had no riches, no influence, just an honest heart and steady hands. Yet in her eyes, that honesty shone brighter than any fortune. By the end of the night, Isabella offered Michael a position at her company, not just any role, but a key position where his insights, compassion, and integrity could make a real impact. "I see something in you that money can't buy," she explained. "I want you to be part of this team, not just as an employee, but as someone whose perspective matters." Michael was stunned. He had never imagined this for himself. The man who had once struggled to pay rent was now being handed an opportunity that could change everything. And yet, it wasn't just the promise of wealth or prestige that made his heart race, it was the recognition that one small, selfless act had created this turning point. Over the next few months, Michael's life transformed in ways he had never dared to dream. He learned new skills, discovered strengths he didn't know he had, and became a respected figure within the company. Colleagues admired his sincerity, and Isabella's mentorship helped him grow beyond the men he had been at the bus stop. But beyond the career changes, something deeper shifted within Michael. He realized that life's true value wasn't measured in wealth, titles, or accolades. It was measured in the connections we make, the kindness we show, and the lives we touch, often unknowingly. And Isabella, once just a stranger in the snow, had become a symbol of that truth, that compassion, even in the smallest gesture, has the power to ripple outward and reshape destinies. One evening, as he walked past the bus stop where it all began, Michael paused. The cold wind blew gently, and he remembered the shivering woman, the moment when he had offered his jacket without a second thought. That single act had set off a chain of events that changed both of their lives forever. He smiled, realizing that sometimes, life's most extraordinary moments come from ordinary people, ordinary deeds, and the courage to act when it matters most. Isabella, too, often thought back to that night. She had been reminded that power and influence are nothing without empathy and human connection. And she had been reminded that the simplest gestures, a jacket offered to a stranger, a smile in passing, could alter the course of someone's life, just as they had altered hers. In the end, both Michael and Isabella learned a profound lesson. The smallest acts of kindness, offered without expectation, can set in motion miracles neither person could have imagined. And in a city of millions, a single moment, a moment of warmth, a gesture of humanity, can change everything.